Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Pleasure Your Partner. This is so exciting. Get cozy. We are diving in with PJ. Hi, PJ.
Hello, hello, beautiful people. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for the invitation, Sydney.
You're so welcome. We're honored. So today we are going to cover some topics about recommitting to your partner to reconnect, which I'm super excited about. We're also going to talk about some resiliency techniques. And we'll probably dive into a few other things. So let's jump in. PJ, where should we start?
Well, I think you said it already. I really genuinely believe that couples need to reconnect, or rather rephrase, couples need to recommit to reconnect. Couples need to recommit to reconnect, but recommit to what? Recommit to each other, recommit to themselves, recommit to their goal together as a couple, recommit to each other sexually, recommit to the depth of intimacy that they want to bring their relationship to. There's a lot of different places that we can recommit. And I believe that resilience is born from commitment. So anything that might seem difficult is going to seem difficult until you commit to something beyond that. And if you really, truly, fully commit to that thing, then the resilience that you need will be born for you to get you there. But most people don't really fully commit. They proclaim that they've committed, but there's just sort of this want that doesn't pull them forward. A commitment pulls you forward, pulls you into the future, despite any obstacles or adversity or difficulties that you might have experienced or embarrassment you might have experienced in the past or shame. Instead, it says, that's what I want. And even though I might feel these weird, awkward, uncomfortable feelings, I'm going to follow my commitment and I'm going to move through the awkwardness until it becomes natural. And I think sexuality, since we're talking about pleasuring your partner, sexuality is a part of that, right? There's sometimes such awkwardness in our part of the world, at least in the United States, where people are really uncomfortable, at least my place in the United States. People often can feel really uncomfortable about the level of intimacy that sexuality can bring. And so they just engage in the sexuality, and it's not often as fulfilling as they're looking for. But when the intimacy is there, things change drastically.
I really appreciate that recommitment because I think we get so lost in the throes of our lives, like with responsibilities. Then sometimes we wake up one day and we're like, oh, when's the last time we had sex? When's the last time we went on a date? I don't know. Okay, that's a problem.
It's totally a problem. I love when couples continue to date, because if they continue to date, what they're saying is, I want to spend time with you so much that I'm willing to block out a part of my regular life and distractions and just focus that attention on developing that connection with you, getting more intimate with you, spending time with you. I love that. I love love, and any opportunity for couples to come together and reunite in a way that makes their bond unbreakable. Oh, it just melts my heart and soul.
Me too. I love love.
I love love too.
I love romance. I just
Yes.
love it all.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah. So when we talk about recommitment, like what does that look like for maybe people who are watching that are just like, well, I don't know how to do that.
That's a great question. I would say a better question is, what does it feel like? Okay.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is because commitment is a feeling. And so I look down, because when I look down, it allows me to almost connect with my heart. Right. And so then I say, okay, what am I committing to? What am I recommitting to? And if I say, well, I'm recommitting to this level of intimacy with my partner, then notice what my eyes do. If I recommit, if I can move my hands, I'm a little dude in a wheelchair and I don't move my arms very well. But think about, like, I'm here where my heart is. What am I recommitting to? Well, I want to recommit to this intimacy with my partner. So you see how my eyes go out. If I can pull my hand off my heart and bring it out here into the future, what I'm doing is I'm saying, this is what I want. This thing out here that I see, that's the level of connection and commitment and intimacy that I want with my partner. So how does that feel? And you can see it's even pulling my body forward. So when I go, okay, instead of being here, I want to be out here. This is where I want to get to. Now, all of a sudden, as long as I truly commit to that, what will happen is that commitment will pull me forward, and I'll start to be creative, and I'll say, okay, well, if that's really my commitment, what are some ways that I get there? And now I become resourceful, I become creative, I become courageous, I become more open and vulnerable. I become more tender. I become more attentive and listen. I'm more patient. I become, I move forward with this sense of servitude, like this desire to actually be in service to. And if we really think about what love, we feel we can never love without first being loved, because we feel the love come through us and then we share it. Love is always about giving. It's always about nurturing. It's always about extending ourselves outward. Love is never about what we get back. It's beautiful if we get something back, but it's not requisite in love.
Yeah, definitely. Just purely from the heart. Not because we have to, not because we should, but purely because we want to.
Yeah, and it's actually, I believe truly, if we're looking at really from the heart, it's nurturing also to the soul, right? Like extending ourselves soul deep. Like, how deep is your love? It's soul deep. That's what you want. How does it become soul deep? When you start to wash away any of the barriers. This is why I'm a huge fan of Tantra. And when you start to wash away the barriers between you and your partner, and you realize this non-duality, this sense of oneness, where there's not her, there's not he, there's not him, there's not you, there's not me, there's just this unity of us. Oh my gosh, it's delicious. And how does that happen? It can happen as simple as, one of the easiest tantric practices where you sit on the bed together, you sit on the couch together or the floor, and maybe he extends his legs out and you sit between his legs. So you can be fully clothed. This doesn't have to be physically sexual, right? And you rest your foreheads on each other. And as she inhales, you exhale. Or as he exhales, you inhale. Or you can do it simultaneously where you both inhale together and exhale together. What happens though is you're creating a rhythm that's deeper than just psychology, physiology, and emotion. It's resonating at the soul level, where that energy that makes you you is merging and uniting and weaving together with the energy and life force of your partner. And then it becomes one unit. This is the sacredness of it. This is the beauty of it. This is the real deep deliciousness that we can get to, right? And we can get to it right now. The moment you decide to commit, the very first step in my belief, the very first step in actually becoming more resilient is let that crap go. So the jealousy, the fear, the worry, the doubt, the I'm not good enough, the judgment, you have to let all of that go, because otherwise that's what you're committed to. Well, I'm probably not going to be good enough for her. I'm probably not going to be, I'm not going to be as adventurous for him as he wants. So what are you committed to? You're committed to, I'm not good enough. I'm not adventurous. I'm not what I want to be. I'm not where he wants me to be. But what do you want? What do you want? And then shifting that commitment will draw you into that space, because you'll change, you'll recommit, and that will allow reconnect.
I love that. And just the concept you brought up of us versus me or you, like, I think literally just saying that us, it like really helps to alleviate the blame, or just like, well, they don't do this. Like, we live in a world, as a human being, I've done this. Oh, they're not doing this. They need to step up this way. But when you really come back to like, okay, what can we do? It kind of like softens, like the energy just softens around it. I think that's a really beautiful place to come from
I love
when
that.
you're
I mean,
recommitting.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, think about it. If we make dinner together, there's a softness there, right? Because
Yeah.
when there's this we all of a sudden release the shell around our chest. We take off the armor, and there's a space that the other person can fit into. And the same with them. There's a space that you can fit into, right? You're not just getting pleasure when you're having sex. You're giving pleasure simultaneously, right? So it's a simultaneous pleasurable experience. And that's the we of it. We're both are enjoying it. But part of the beauty of that is like, how can I nurture this? How can I give that out? How can I be more tender? How can I be more vulnerable? How can I share more? How can I connect more deeply? The more that we do that, the more that person wants to give back to you. I always say to the men that I work with both men and women, but when I work with the men, I always say, if you give a little to your lady, she'll give a lot. She'll give a
True.
lot. so much. And good men, there's some good men out there that just make me come to tears because they're such good men. They're so tender and loving and supportive and nurturing with their daughters and with their women, their wives. I just love it because it lets those women actually be in their deepest, most sacred feminine. And that is beautiful. That allows for that real connection to be when she gets to be authentic, because you're also authentic and leading that way.
Yeah, and just expanding on that a little bit, it really doesn't take much. Like, it's just you set small intention to just do some little thing,
Yeah.
and then that person feels like so loved and taken care of and just appreciated, and that just opens the doors to intimacy, I think.
Yeah, and also sometimes it's about the surprise, right?
Yeah.
It can be walking by them in the hallway, and as you walk by them, you say, "Hey," and they say, "Yeah, what?" And you walk up to them and just touch their cheek and kiss them or push them up against the wall. They're like, well, "What's going on?" Because it's so completely different, right? So change and variety creates this level of intoxication also, where all of a sudden it's like, whoa, hold on, what's going on, right? Or what happens if you're in the kitchen and you're cooking together, and as you walk by, you just brush her hand, or she, touches your chest as you walk by each other. Oh, it just lets the other person breathe. It's like, whoa, there's this inspiration, there's this bringing in of spirit, of their sharing their spirit, their heart, their love, their energy with you. And when you breathe it in, you're letting it come into you. It's sensuality, it's sexuality, it's all the same thing.
Yeah. And even just like sitting around and you could like ponder, you're like, ooh, I could do this for my spouse today. Like, you get excited. That brings a new energy and like level of pleasure just by thinking about it, let alone what could happen once you do it.
And you're like literally right on track with what I say. I say that step number one in becoming more resilient is you got to let that stuff go. Step number two is commit fully to it. Step number three is get excited about the challenges. So don't see things as a problem. Don't look at your current relationship as a problem. Don't be like, there's so many obstacles, like he acts like this or she acts like this, or there's all these struggles. Instead, get excited about the challenge. Don't call them problems. Don't call them obstacles. Call them challenges, something that are fun and adventurous, and get excited about that, because when you get excited, it elevates the dopamine in your brain. And dopamine often we think is associated with being excited and or feeling good rather, but it actually is more likely or more associated with motivation. So when you get excited about it, you get motivated to find creative ways to actually create that connection. There's small connections, and if you listen to how they talk, if this particular person says things like, "Oh, I see," or, "I had this vision," or "I was looking at this thing," they're very visual. So they may want to, go out and look at the sunset together, right?
Yeah.
Or you might say, "Babe, come look at this beautiful flower," right? And if they talk about, "Wow, that I just feel like this," or, "Yeah, have you touched the texture of this?" Or, "Something just doesn't feel right inside of me. Like, I just don't feel comfortable." They're very tactile. They're very physical. So the more you listen to them, the more you can then also speak to them in their love language, not just their love language, but in the way their brain processes the world. And so really listening is one of the first stages of intimacy, right? And we don't just listen with our ears. We listen with our eyes. When I touch him or her this way, do they soften, right? Listening with our sense of emotion, right? Are you listening with your heart? When I do this, do they recoil? Do they get tense, or do they physically relax? Right? What is it that I do that they say thank you about? Right? And so intimacy and that pleasuring your partner is about really getting to know them better than anybody else on the planet knows them. And that's literally, it's called pleasure your partner, right? It's not get your partner to pleasure you, which is delicious too, right? But it's literally, we're talking about how I can bring the most delicious experiences to this person that I love, to the person that I deeply want to reconnect with.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, really.
When
Just
you say that's what it's all
connection.
about, tell me, put it that in your words. What do you mean that's what it's all about? What is what it's all about?
Well, that's the thing about being in a romantic relationship. It's all just about connection and finding what's good and feels juicy and just really getting curious and being playful. I don't know, having fun. I think a lot of people fall into the traps of, and I've done this too, like relationships become work and responsibilities and chores. You gotta also, let that stuff go sometimes and also be like, what can we do for fun? Like, how do we make
Yes.
this more fun? Like, that's that's one of the benefits of having a partner. It's just it's a you have so much opportunity to explore pleasure on so many levels together. So why not do it a lot?
Sydney, I love it when romantic partners are also playmates. And
Yes, love
instead of
this.
just saying, he's my lover or she's my lover, what if
Mhm.
he's also your playmate? What if she's also your playmate? Right? Oh my God, how fun is that? We almost have no closer relationships often than our closest friends. We're
Mhm.
often closer to our friends than we are our own family. So if she or
Mhm.
he becomes your playmate, or if you're watching this together, as I hope you are, if you decide to become each other's playmate, or you already are each other's playmate, congratulations. And how can you make it even more playful and more fun? Because those
Mhm.
kinds of experiences that you're having bring that sense of variety into your life, and it creates a sense of confidence that you know who they are and how they are, and how the two of you connect. It's puzzle pieces, right?
Mhm.
How do we connect together the best? What's the most
Mhm.
juicy and delicious way?
Yes, definitely. Oh, there's the sky's the limit, really. Sky
Right.
above me.
Yeah, the universe, the heavens, right? There's
Yeah.
if we go super spiritual, if God or the universe is infinite, then that means
Mhm.
there are an infinite number of areas um, in your lives that you can connect, and not only an infinite number of areas, but an infinite number of things that you can connect on, and then each one of those things, there's an infinite number of layers that you connect
Mhm.
down through. So
Mhm.
you don't have to ever get bored with your partner. There's so
Yeah,
much depth that you can
so
explore
much.
together.
And you just gotta be willing to find it and explore it together.
It's that creativity, it's that resourcefulness. What are you actually committed to? Right.
Mhm.
And so if you commit to something being fun, like how is it going to be the most fun? Well, what is it that she likes? Do they like roller coasters, or do they like picnics? Do they like walks on the beach? Do they like going hiking? What is it that they love the most? If we're talking about pleasuring your partner, this is about really knowing where you're going to commit so that you create that
Mhm.
connection that you've always dreamed of. I
Mhm.
believe that most relationships that separate probably did never have to. And if people wanted to separate and they're like, hey, this just isn't working for me, and the other person's like, yeah, this isn't working for me either, then when they part, it doesn't hurt as much. But when we separate and it feels like part of our guts are being torn out, or we're hurt, or we're angry, what we're really saying is, I didn't get my needs met, right?
Yeah.
And this wasn't what I wanted. I wanted this thing to work out. So then how do we
Yeah.
make it work out? Step number one, if we circle back, is we got to let that crap go, right? We got to start fresh, because
Mhm.
as long as we're holding some kind of attachment, it's always going to hold us back. It's an anchor, it's a ship anchor. The anchor in the
Mhm.
past, right? We can't do anything about the past. It's an anchor that's dug deep into the ground. But what we can
Mhm.
do is let go of the ropes or the lines or the chains that tie us to that anchor,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so possible to heal. Like some people have asked me, like, do you think it's possible for us to, reconnect, recommit, work through this? I'm like, yes, it's always possible if you want it, if you want that.
Yeah, and it comes back to that, right? If you're asking, do you think it's possible for us to reconnect? What I hear is, I want to reconnect,
Yeah.
right? Otherwise, you might be saying something like, "Ugh, honestly, like I'm done. I'm just not interested
Yeah.
anymore. Nothing moves me. You know, he's all right or she's all right, right?" But that's
Yeah.
not what we're talking about here. We're talking
Mm.
about um, couples that want to pleasure their partner, that want to bring more joy,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
want to stay together and go deeper.
Definitely. That's what we're here for. So I know you have I want you to tell us about the art technique
Yes.
we talked
So
about
I
earlier.
believe that we're all artists that create our lives. Okay.
Mhm.
And the art technique is something that the brain literally goes through every second, every millisecond of every day. And I believe that when you become aware of this, you can begin to transform your life in the direction that you want. So A stands for awareness. Are you aware of what's going on inside of you right now? Are you aware of what's going on inside of your partner? Are you aware
Mhm.
of what's going on between the two of you? Are you aware of what they're missing? Are you aware of what you're missing? Are you aware of what you need or want? Are you aware of what's holding you back from saying what you need or want? Um, the alternative to that is just you're not aware, which makes change difficult, but sometimes we're not aware. So we want to start with awareness. How do I become more aware? Slow down, stop, get out of our head, get into our body, and then feel, and then maybe go back to our head to like rationalize our way through things, or to understand, oh, well, this is holding me back. Why? Where did that come from? Sure, we can use our brain as a tool, but don't
Mhm.
get stuck in our brain, because the brain is something that will hold you back from actually expressing yourself fully of who you are. So step number one is to become aware. Okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's aware of what you're recommitting to. Sometimes it's aware of what you really want. Step number two is R. R is responsibility. Now, there's a
Mhm.
difference, responsibility and reaction. I believe that there are only two kinds of people in the world. There are free people, or there are slaves. And I believe that a
Mm.
reaction is a slave action. A
Mm.
reaction is a slave action. That's why R stands for responsibility, the
Yeah.
ability to respond consciously by choice. This is what sets you free. When you go, hey, I'm aware of this situation, and what am I going, where is my responsibility in this? What kind
Mhm.
of responsibility can I take for this? How would I like to um, take responsibility to improve the situation? What is it that I'm willing to do? Right.
Mhm.
And the moment you say something like, what is it that I'm willing to do? You shift to T, which is technique. What is the
Yeah.
action that I'm willing to take? What technique am I going to use right now to create a closeness? What technique am I going to use right now to become more creative or more resourceful? Maybe that technique is I'm just going to sit and I'm going to brainstorm and write some things down. Or maybe the technique is I'm going to pick up a call and call Sydney as, you know, my couples coach or intimacy coach, and say, Sydney, I don't know how to like fix this situation. Or Sydney, I want to have a delicious date tonight. Do you have some ideas for my partner and I? Right? Something wonderful like that. But ART stands for art, or art stands for ART, awareness, responsibility, technique, or
Mhm.
no technique, like you're just doing nothing. Eek.
Mhm.
That's when relationships start to fall apart, right? When you're not doing anything.
Mhm.
And the thing is that the human brain goes through this every moment of every day. You're constantly aware or lacking awareness in a moment. You're either reacting to a situation, which is most often the case, or you're consciously aware and you're consciously choosing how you want to respond, which means freedom. Because you don't have freedom without choice. You don't have choice unless there are options. When you're in reaction mode, reaction is a slave action because you don't have a choice. The unconscious mind kicks in and says, we're going to do that. And then you, eek, you, the conscious you, is usually left to clean that up later. Yuck. All
Yes.
because you didn't take responsibility, but instead you acquiesced the responsibility to your unconscious mind. It reacted, said something dumb. Right now you have to go back and clean it up later. And then T, we're always doing something. We're always in some kind of action or no action, right? But once you take
Mm.
responsibility, you can choose whether you want to take action and what it's going to be, or whether maybe the smarter thing to do in this case is just to be quiet and not say anything at all, right?
Mm.
So it's a choice. Every millisecond of every moment, your brain is cycling through art. The
Yeah.
question is whether or not you're aware, whether or not you're going to take responsibility, and is that technique going to work? And you're aware, your awareness shifts over into responsibility and into technique. You're responsible for the technique that you're using. You're also responsible for whether or not you're aware. And there's a technique of awareness, and there's a technique that you're using to be responsible. These are intermingling constantly.
Mm. Well, and this sounds like a really powerful practice couples can sit down together and do. Just be like, okay, what's going on for me? What's going on for you? What am I responsible for? What are you responsible for? Okay, what action can we take to reconnect, recommit. I think that's cool.
Oh, it's so delicious. When couples sit together and just talk about how the relationship can get better, oh,
Mhm.
it's so delicious
I
because
love
it allows them to get open and honest with each other. And it says, hey, I want to know what I can do to be even better for you. Right.
Mhm.
And so many men, this is unfortunate, but so many men, like when the women say, this is what I need from you. Can you do this? The men resist that. Oh, it just makes me so frustrated sometimes because they resist it and they say, oh, well, now I can't do it because you told me to do it. No, bro, you can literally do it right now. It's not that you're doing, it's how you're doing it. It's the
Yes.
change from, it's not the physical act of doing it. It's not the thing that she wants you to say that you're saying. It's what is the intention behind it. She could say, I really wish that you would hold my hand more often. And if he reaches over and says, fine, I'm holding your hand. Are you happy? No, I'm not happy at all
No.
now.
No,
Or
no.
immediately he could say, really? And he could hold your hand and say, I didn't know this was important to you. And he could put his other hand on top. And
Mhm.
all of a sudden it's delicious and beautiful. It happened in the same moment. It's the intention behind it that makes everything change. It's the salt
Mhm.
that goes on, on the food that makes it more spectacular. It's the sugar in the cookie that makes it sweet. It's the
Yeah,
intention.
definitely. Okay, I have one more question to ask you before
That's
we
it.
talk about your free gift, because this comes up so much. I come across this so much. Women, I don't want to completely generalize, but mostly I hear this from women. They're like so angry that it takes their man to not, they're not doing anything, not doing until the woman is angry that the man finally does something to step up or like change. Like, why is that? Like,
Is the question does it take so much effort to get a man in motion?
yes, yes. So many people want to know.
Listen, let me start by saying, I'm sorry, ladies. I am truly, truly sorry that the male species is genuinely lazy. If we're not allowed to feed dolphins in the wild. Do you know why?
Probably because they learn to get food from people, not because they don't learn to hunt as good. I don't
My
know. That's my
understanding, yes, 100%. It's my
opinion.
understanding that they then forget how to hunt,
Mm,
right? They forget how to take care of themselves.
mm,
And they become lazy, and male dolphins specifically become lazy. And it's
mm.
my understanding that they'll actually starve, which is hard to believe, but this is
Yeah.
what I've heard. Okay. But it's the same with human males, right? If a male has had his mom do everything for him, right? Or in the early parts of the relationship, you've done everything and you haven't stepped up to say, hey, can you actually help me out? Or, hey, listen, I'm going to go out with my girlfriends. Do you mind taking care of the laundry while I'm gone? You shouldn't have to say that, right? But the problem
True.
is that often women wait and then they don't say anything, and then they wait and they don't say anything, then they get resentful, and then they get frustrated, and then they get more resentful, and pretty soon it blows up, and then the man's like, I didn't even know you were upset about it. Like, can you bring me along? Can you let me know sooner? So the responsibility, the onus falls on both parties, okay, because it's a relationship. And so I would say one of the ways to avoid that is let him in on what it is that you need or want earlier,
Hmm.
and let it be smaller pieces, and then let him know when you come home, babe, thanks so much for helping with that. I really appreciate it. It makes the
Yeah.
world better. And when that's done, I feel like I can have more time with you or for you, right? And so let him know how that benefited him, because often the man's mind, he feels like, he's doing something that doesn't mean anything to him and brings him no value. So it's taking from him. But if he realizes, and listen, again, I'm sorry, men shouldn't have to be trained, but sometimes, listen, there's boys, there's adult boys, there's men, and then there's, in my opinion, warriors, and then there's gentlemen, then there's gentlemen warriors, right? There's
Mhm.
layers of what kind of man you get. And
Mhm.
sometimes men just need to realize that it's important for the nature of the relationship if they actually participate. So letting them know the value that it brings to you and how that then circles back and benefits them, that helps.
Mm.
Okay. So
Yeah.
why do men do that? I think by nature, if we're left to our own devices, we really come down to very base level often, which is, can we eat it? Can we, have sex with it? Or does it bring us some kind of benefit?
Yeah.
We're sort of very centrally focused. We don't often look out there unless we're hunting. We're often just focused on what we want right now. We forget
Mhm.
that we're in a relationship, and a relationship means being supportive and putting our energy into nurturing the partner. And so if you're early in a relationship, start making some modifications and open that line of communication. If you're
Mhm.
later in a relationship, you still have to have this conversation. And I would still start small, because I say it like this: you've heard that question, how do you eat an elephant, right? And the answer everybody knows is one bite at a time. I often say with my, right, one small bite at a time. I often say when I'm talking with women about men, I say, how do you eat an airplane? Everybody's like, what are you talking about? How do you eat an airplane? Apparently in the 80s, there were one or two people that ate an entire airplane, and how do you do that? One
Yeah.
small, safe bite at a time, one small, safe, tiny little thing at a time, right? And so if you're in a relationship where you're struggling for that connection, but you want that connection, you want to start small with your men, okay? And
Mhm.
so they can be tiny, tiny asks, and then nurture him, like give him a kiss, pat him on his popo, right? Touch his chest, and let him know that when you touch a man's chest, you let him know that he feels, or that you feel safe in his presence. If you touch his
Mhm.
arms, it means something different. If you touch his hands, if you touch his face, it translates in our mind differently. But if you need him to get on board with you, you want to bring him up slowly, little bit by little bit by little bit, nurturing
Mhm.
every step along the way. You shouldn't have to do this, but it may turn out in the end to be beneficial if you don't want to fight, but you want your man to be who you both can be together. Um,
Mhm.
so I'm sorry, we're just born that way, and it's the worst.
It
It's the
is.
worst.
I'm sorry. It is. But we can change it and shift into something better, which is
But,
good.
yeah, listen, I always say that change is inevitable. Change is
Yeah.
inevitable. It's going to happen, whether we like it or
Yeah.
not. Transformation is a choice. Change
Yeah.
is inevitable. Transformation is a choice. So if you want to transform your relationship, ladies, and that is the problem, then if you really want to, then where are you committed? Are you committed
Mm.
to making that transformation? If so, then you want to make these little tiny small steps with him so he gets on board with you easier and easier and easier. For example, hey, honey, you want to go for a walk? He goes, walk, right? Why? Is there something like, she's like, I just want to go for a walk, enjoy it. Let it be
Yeah.
pleasant, let it be fun. So next time you say, hey, you want to go for a walk? He goes, okay, go for a walk. It was pleasant. I wasn't in trouble. Everything's fine. Don't
Mhm.
ambush him on the second walk, but you can talk about one small tiny thing and then let it go. Don't let it blow up into trying to fix all the problems at once. We don't do
Mm.
that as men. We don't do that, right? But
No.
one little thing that we know brings you pleasure, if you're happy, oh man, it relieves so much pressure from us. So if we
Yeah.
know we can do one tiny thing that brings you joy, all of a sudden that will be easier for us to do. We can't change
Mm.
everything. We won't change everything at once, but we will
No.
transform little bit by little bit by little bit for you when we
Yeah.
see that it brings joy and makes our relationship easier.
Yeah. Well, thank you for addressing that, because that question comes up all the time. And I'm like, well, let's ask a man about that.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I'm so sorry that we're like that, but we're not all like that. But,
Yeah.
we can all be really, really good men. We can all be gentlemen warriors.
Mhm. I agree. I love that. Gentlemen warriors. So good.
Thank you.
Well, we're just about at the end. PJ, I'd love for you to share what your free gift is with the audience.
Sure. Listen, if you have questions, if anything that I've said today made sense, and you're like, I just want to ask that dude a question, right? Jump on a free 20-minute call with me. It's called Finding or Discovering True Love Conversation. I've got
Mm.
a free 20-minute call. Jump on the call with me, chat, come ready to ask me questions, but make sure that you come also ready to be open and honest, because we want to make
Mhm.
sure that anything that you want to ask about, that you're being truly honest, because sometimes people want to ask a question, but there's a hidden question in there, or they're not
Yeah.
being totally truthful. They're not being responsible, maybe with their piece. They just want to put the blame and the onus on somebody else. Come
Yeah.
completely open and honest. And, if you have questions, let's chat. Okay.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for just offering the audience your time and wisdom. I appreciate you and honor you so much. This has been super fun, PJ.
Thanks, Sydney. 100% my pleasure. And beautiful people, I love you tons. And can I leave a message?
Yeah, of
Okay,
course.
give me a second. Let me feel it out.
Mm.
Love will make a difference when you commit to love. And so
Mm.
make sure that you're actually committed to love and not committed to wanting something to be a different way.
Mm.
There's a big difference. Where is your commitment lying? Because the resilience that you need will give you what you need to get to that place. Okay.
Mm.
And if you want love,
Amazing.
commit to love.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for ending on that. And thank you again for being here.
My pleasure, my honor.
Thank you to the audience for watching. I'll see you for the next interview. Bye.